Okay, hello everyone, welcome. My name's Julia Frost. I'm the immediate past convener of RTPI Scotland and chair of the Scotland International Group. And so delighted to be your chair and facilitator today for this session. I'm joined by our presenter, Timo Turunen. Timo is a senior advisor of national spatial planning at the Finnish government. He works for the Department of the Built Environment, and he'll be talking today about how Finland aims to resource and deliver their carbon neutral by 2035 target and the role of their planning system in doing this. And this obviously has implications for Scotland as well in terms of net zero emissions by 2045. So interesting to compare the different approaches. Timo will be looking at what Finland is doing to meet this target at the national level, at the regional level and at the local level. He'll be looking at the role of planning, of course, but also the role of transport and infrastructure, looking at behavioural change and the role of how to potentially decrease demand through behavioural change, and of course the role of designing places as well. This is a series that RTPI Scotland are running, looking at innovative approaches to planning internationally. I think this could be the first one, perhaps, and the aim is to really look to see what Scotland can learn from Finland in terms of its ambitions for MPF4. Are there any ideas? Are there any projects which would be suitable for use in Scotland? Can we be inspired by what Finland is doing? And of course, just as a reminder of MPF4, it's the long-term plan for Scotland. It sets out where development and infrastructure is needed to support sustainable and inclusive growth. And this comes at a really important time for the MPF4 programme. The call for ideas has just been launched, and it's been summarised under 5 key issues and a number of themes, 3 key themes: people, work and place. So again, interesting to see the comparisons there. In terms of the programme, there'll be the interim position statement produced autumn 2020, the draft plan produced September 2021, and finally adopted, the plan is by spring, summer 2022. So interesting time for MPF4, and as I say, interesting time to hear from internationally and other lessons from other countries. In terms of today's session, thank you for joining. Timo will speak for roughly half the time, 20-25 minutes. There'll then be a question and answer session for another 20-25 minutes, and then there'll be a summing up at the end. Please do submit questions. These will be looked at by our background team at the RTPI, and they'll be sending them through to me, and I'll be able to ask Timo your questions. And I understand you can use the question function and also the chat function as well. So without further ado, enough of me, over to you, Timo, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okay, thank you, Julia, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to take part in this event and to be able to follow the discussion of the MPF4. And I have a short, can you...
I think that's fine, Timo. Yeah, I think we can see the presentation there.
You can see. Okay, I have a short presentation about carbon neutral Finland 2035 target, and what it requires from spatial planning perspective is my focus today. Finally, I bring up some own remarks from Finland's point of view. And can you see my next slide?
Okay, no. So I think we're still on the first slide there. So it was just to...
Now, yes.
Perfect. Yeah, that's it. Perfect.
So my name is Timo Turunen, and I'm working as a senior advisor for the Finnish government, and my main responsibility is national land use issues and policy making. And National Land Use Guideline is our planning instrument at the national level. It is part of land use planning system in addition to regional land use plans and municipal plans. The purpose of guideline is to make sure that matters of national significance are taken into account in in the all planning and in actions taken by government authorities. And maybe my everyday work is a mix of many kinds of monitoring, anticipation, evaluation, and cooperation. And from time to time, we draft up a vision document that is kind of national spatial plan without any legal effects. It is a background material and inspiration source for preparing national land use guideline, regional land use plans, municipal plans, traffic plans, or other sector plans. Last year, I was in Scotland for a couple of months working at the Scottish government, and I really noticed that Finland and Scotland have many similarities: population, northern location, the importance of planning, and specialties, climate change as one of the main priorities or challenges. And one day after work, I was sitting in a pub in late, and I noticed this article in a local newspaper: Scotland in perfect position to lead worlds on climate neutral countries. And soon after I returned home, we got a new government and its ambitious government program with carbon neutral target. Now we are still on that path, also during these hard times with COVID-19. Our minister said recently that climate change is not postponed. Maybe people are even more sensitive to avoiding this kind of threats. The target means that Finland will be carbon neutral in 2035 and carbon negative soon after that. And carbon neutrality means that things are equal to emissions, and carbon negative means, of course, that things are bigger than emissions. There are some numbers on the right side. It shows that we have had a quite good emission reduction development so far, but the gap between 18 and 35, it is really quite huge. It requires accelerating emission reduction and strengthening carbon sinks. The scientists, we have our climate change panel, and their scenarios convince that it is realistic, it could be realistic, and it has also positive economic impacts, at least in the long run. Pioneering can bring huge business opportunities, and we have also strong support from citizens and politicians. And you can be sure that carbon neutral target means fundamental systematic change everywhere. Rapid and radical changes in both production and consumption are needed. Energy will be consumed less and more efficiently, carbon sinks will be provided more, and industrial emissions will be reduced. And so everyone is needed to get involved in this work, and maybe all the stones and stumps must be turned. There are right now a lot of reforms underway, and also there are many immediate actions. There are reforms of climate. We have Climate Change Act, Climate Change Strategy. We are reforming our Planning Act, and soon after that, our National Land Use Guidelines. We are making industry-specific roadmaps, many kind of taxation reforms, and we are also reforming business subsidies, and so on and so on. But I have to say that municipalities and regions play a very important role. We have, for example, National Carbon Neutral Network that offers many kind of services and tools, and actually many municipalities have even more ambitious goals than the government has. One example is city of Espoo. which is going to be carbon neutral as early as 2030. Many actions in Espoo, for example, are related to land use planning, and in Finland, the wind environment generates a significant proportion of Finland's greenhouse gas emissions. Buildings account for around 38%, and transport makes up around 17% of the end use of energy. So spatial planning matters really. We have to plan for the future, and climate change is perhaps the biggest challenge in future, but there are many more. Maybe these challenges are probably same in Scotland and everywhere in Europe. Many of other challenges are related to mitigation of climate change, for example, digitalization or revolution of transport. But there are also many question marks, such as is epidemic or urbanization, and so on. So clear direction is needed, and for the future, and the national land use guidelines create the condition for achieving a carbon neutral target. I have here compiled the key priorities that contribute to carbon neutrality. They are affecting both emissions and carbon sinks. There are, for example, this spatial structure of the full country creates prerequisites, and maybe the key emphasis is the compact community structure, but we need definitely smooth connections while saving the environment. Then there is a renewable energy and energy efficiency. They are needed. And last but not least, nature role as an adjuster and carbon sink. The development of the spatial structure of the whole country will greatly influence how the climate goals can be achieved. We are developing networking and polycentric spatial structures, taking into account the specific issues of Helsinki region and its role as part of the European network of metropolities. Networking means that the development is dependent on capable of areas to specialize, network, and cooperate nationally and internationally. We need to promote accessibility with help of digitalization and environmentally friendly connections, especially train connections. We have also ensured conditions for intermodal and multi-service travel and transport chains. Polycentric means that we have to maintain and strengthen nationally vital network of biggest cities in different parts of Finland, and to develop their functional areas so to support balanced structure and utilization of assets in different parts of Finland. As urbanization continues, it is not sensible to concentrate all activities in Helsinki and maybe two, three biggest city regions. But anyhow, metropolitan Finland is important to improve Finland's international competitiveness. It requires sustainable growth in Helsinki region, and we also have to control growth pressures in a controlled manner throughout the southern part of Finland, and to develop different kind of development zones between other biggest city region, especially with the help of high-speed rail connections. Yes, and combat community structure is maybe our key emphasis. we have to support walking city and transit city fabrics and avoid car city fabric. And maybe the means can be divided into 3 parts: promotion, supplementary construction, and utilizing good location in new construction. Maybe it has the biggest impacts on emission reduction. And we have also placement of jobs and services in different kind of hubs and good service level public transport hubs and so on. It is also important, and the word measure is creating the condition for measures for walking, cycling and public transport and changes in car use. And also it has quite big impacts on emission reduction, as you can see. Renewable energy and energy efficiency are needed. Here, wind power is an example. Our national land use guideline says that in regional land use planning, the areas best suited for wind power utilization should be indicated. There are some conditions for that, and at the regional level, Finland has divided into 18 regions, and they are responsible for regional land use plans. And in these plans, they reconcile and indicate windmills and parks by taking into consideration circumstances and other needs. And on the right side, there is a current situation. The number of windmills and parks are increasing all the time, and also wind power is increasing very fast. Then there is a strengthening carbon sinks and storage in forest, agriculture and other areas, and here are some national requirements. We have to, in all planning and works of government, ensure the preservation of significant integrated farmland and forest, promote preservation on biodiversity valuable areas and ecological connections, as well as areas suitable for recreational use and the continuity of the green area network. Priority have to be given to developing existing transport links and networks, as well as community development should primarily be based on existing structure, and in the biggest city regions, the integrity of community structure is strengthened. And there is also one example. It is from East Finland, North Karelia, and they have made this kind of carbon sink review, and there are areas, integrated areas to be maintained, the potential to improve carbon sinks, and areas where are coordination pressures and regional land use plans. They make these national land use guidelines concrete and deliver them to the municipal land use planning. So I have made a short summary highlighting some key priorities and needs of national spatial planning that are central to the carbon neutral target perspective and otherwise. And I have to say that land use spatial planning matters, and the importance of spatial planning as an integration. We have to realize this important meaning and status of planning. It is some kind of an ever-changing and evolving platform that lays the foundation for the living condition, business life, and environment. And planning must respond to changes in the operating environment and guide direct development towards sustainable development. And maybe we are living times growing uncertainty and the constant complexity of things, some kind of time of acceleration and big problems, and that's why anticipation, stretch tests, and resilience are needed really. And climate change is perhaps the most acute challenge to sustainable development. On the other hand, solutions tackling this climate change, they are also essential for people's daily lives, the economy, and often also for business. And we have to realize that solutions are different in different areas. We have to think about how to identify different areas and needs, where our focuses and major changes occur with financial and other crises. And we have to ask ourselves, can COVID-19 be an opportunity to bring about climate change friendly solutions? Right now in Finland, there are huge recovery projects and a lot of money, and these are targeted at train connections and public transport and that kind of climate friendly targets. And I think that there's a need for new kind of planning thinking and for effective and mutual supportive tools. Planning has, of course, many dimensions: visionary, strategic, framing, task setting, and regulatory. You have to use these elements together and efficiently, and maybe clear numerical goals accelerate change. For example, this carbon neutral 2035 target. And a networking and experimental culture is needed. This can also apply internationally to boost each other, for example, between Scotland and Finland. And it is said that digitalization is just a tool, but it changes everything and fast, and we need to invest in that. Planning matters. And finally, and that is very important, different sectors, regions, and municipalities have to work together. We have to build a common situation room. We have to create phenomenon-based foresight and identify common interfaces and here is some pictures showing what we are thinking and developing right now. It is some kind of maybe planning 3.0. It is something like really human kind of synergy with learning and thinking. Winners are all, and each area is more like wise. And the picture on the left side was drawn by Joy Ravets. Maybe you know him. He's professor from Manchester, and we have had some cooperation with him, and it shows that we have some problem, for example, or challenge, for example, this climate change, carbon neutrality, First phase is syndrome mapping. We have to clarify what is this challenge, how it influences, and so on. We have to make scenarios and look at future tense, dynamic, alternative scenarios, maybe stress tests and that kind of things. Synergy mapping. This is the creative side of this practice and new collaboration, alignments, learning exchange, and so on. And then we have to clarify what is our direction and to and strategies. And finally, we have to go around this cycle again or take it out to the world and that kind of things. And the picture on the right side shows how we can identify common interfaces and interests. For example, to achieve carbon neutral Finland with help of spatial planning. One example of this interface is, for example, a new high-speed rail link at the national level. It is very important. But to promote these rail links, we have to, it requires more efficient use of railway station areas at the local level. That kind of thinking is going on in Finland right now. And this is my final slide. It shows what we are developing right now. We are creating a continuous national anticipation and evaluation work plus stress test, so to put and keep spatial structure and land use and its planning on a sustainable path. And as I said at the beginning, we are reforming our planning bill and also national land use guidelines, and we have done an international review and comparison between other Nordic countries and some other European countries, and one of them is Scotland. And I must say that Scotland is very interesting, perhaps the most interesting reference. I made last year during my visit in Scotland a list of good practices, solutions that I will take back home from Scotland, and there were over 15 points, and many of them deals with national planning framework. So we are following very strictly what you are doing there in Scotland, and I know also in Sweden, in our neighbor country, the strengthening of national planning is also being explored by government, and Scotland is also there, one of the 8 references. And so I have used now over 20 minutes and I have to finish my presentation, but thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Timo. That was excellent. And there's a range of questions that are coming in. Lots of questions. I'm just wondering what order to take them in, but I'll just start at the top at the moment. Timo, just the first question: does the Finnish government see planning as a natural part of the approach to meeting carbon targets? So is planning the kind of natural way to go? And if not, what have you done to make politicians aware of its role and importance?
I think that our politicians, our government realize that planning is very important. It is the maybe if we are thinking that planning it there is a what is that functional traffic economy business and that kind of energy and that kind of things. Then there is a financial side, and the planning, land use, spatial structure is the third part of this big picture. And that wise, it is some kind of growth platform for all activities, and it reconciles different kind of needs. And I think that And I hope that our government and other actors realize that planning is, it really is essential, for example, for this carbon neutral target. And we have our new government and government program, and there are many, a lot of text and a lot of requirements for planning. And so we have to reform our planning bill, or is it act, as you have done last year, and we have to reform these national land use guidelines. And maybe the most important thing is just this climate change and these requirements of carbon neutrality. Of course, we have to make this land use planning system more simple, and that kind of goals there are also. But maybe this climate change is one of the most important drivers in this work.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So people believe in the planning system in Finland, and they trust the planning system, would you say?
Yes, trust. Yes, that is a good word. But is it same situation in Scotland? And
yeah, well, I think we have a better situation here in Scotland than down in England, certainly. Interesting what you were saying about the at the beginning of your presentation, Timo, that you have the support of citizens. Do you feel that generally within the planning system that citizens want to engage within the planning system around this issue of climate change?
That is good question. I think that citizens generally, they think that climate change is one of the, maybe it is the most important matter to take into consideration. But when we are going to, but it can be very hard when you are in your own neighborhood and you have to make this kind of some kind of train connections, or you have to build more efficiently and that kind of things. That of course it is not so easy solution for local people, but I think that this is quite normal situation in planning everywhere. But we have to, but I think that climate change is something, if we are making these solutions, they are also very important for people's daily life. If you can move easily, you can walk, you can cycle, you can take public transport, and all the services are quite near, and that kind of things. And as that kind of things are important for climate change and for people daily life and for economy and that kind of things, that it is a little bit easier to understand.
Sure, and then having standards and national policy, I guess, allows people at the local level to then understand how they can play their part as well. Just moving on to other questions that have been raised. Someone here is saying they're interested in compact communities. What is the government doing to make this happen on the ground? So you mentioned in your presentation the compact community structure. So just people are looking for a bit more information about that, Timo. What's happening on the ground there?
Yes, I said that compact community structure. I think that it is a key emphasis. And we are, for example, this, I don't know, is this we are talking about free urban fabrics. I think that is this thinking familiar to you, but for example, here in city region of Helsinki or other biggest city regions, we are divided this structure into the three parts. There is a working city fabric and transit city fabric and city car city fabric, and as I say that we have to support this working and transit city fabric and avoid car city fabric. And I think that this is happening all the time so far, that people are moving from suburbia to nearer to city center of Helsinki or other, what are these sub centers, that kind of things, and it is easier to arrange walking or cycling condition or to promote public transport. But this COVID-19, I don't know what it means really in the long run. Now people are sitting in their home offices and they are not using public transport. What is situation in after 2, 3, 10 years? Is it so that what is that long distance work or something like that? Is it more usual, or what will happen? It's going to happen? That is a big question mark, and we have during next year we are making this kind of anticipation work, and we have to concentrate more on these consequences of this COVID-19.
Yeah, interesting points there, really. I mean, you spoke in your presentation about increases in train connections, public transport. There might be potential there, but as you say now, the COVID-19 has resulted in, of course, less people at the moment using public transport, more people cycling and walking around, which of course is really positive, and I'm sure that's happening in Finland too. But more people traveling by car and at the moment anyway, and interesting to look at the long-term implications there. Yeah. Okay, good. Just moving on, Timo. The next question. Polycentric Finland. How will the Polycentric Finland approach be implemented? Will it involve restricting growth in some areas and promoting it in others? And how do you envisage this happening? So a question about Polycentric Finland approach.
That is good question. I think that we have now very polycentric Finland at the moment. We have, you know, that Finland is a maybe much more bigger country than Scotland, and we have as many citizens, a little over 5 million, and we have some kind. We have maybe 20 big city regions in different parts of Finland right now. But how we can maintain this polycentric Finland, because people and enterprises are all the time moving here to metropolitan area, and there are many difficulties. For example, price of housing and that kind of things. But how can we implement this? For example, this accessibility is very important. We have to maintain and we have to create maybe new, for example, train connections, high-speed connections. Then, for example, this planning is very important at the municipal level. How attractive these areas are. And then, for example, is there universities or that kind of possibilities? And I think that there are many means how we can develop and maintain and perhaps strengthen this polycentric structure in Finland. But it is not easy, maybe.
Okay, thank you. Do your municipal authorities align with metropolitan cities? What is the governance system? And that's a question from David Minton. So, do your municipal authorities align with metropolitan cities?
For example, yes, this Helsinki metropolitan region, there are maybe 14 municipalities, and I think that the main problem is that each of these municipalities are making their own land use plans, and there are at the moment there are no regional land use plan for this metropolitan area. We have this regional land use plan, but it is a much more bigger area. It is nearly all the southern part of Finland, but our Land Use and Building Act says that these 14 municipalities have to make their own. I don't remember, is it general plan? But nothing has happened, and that is a big problem. And I know that there is when we are reforming that our planning bill, these city regions, maybe there is going to be a new planning level at the city regions level, but it is not so easy to implement that. And of course, there are some kind of agreement between government and Helsinki city region and agreement, and so that the municipality city region, they promises to build new houses, and they promise to take into consideration all the carbon neutral targets and that kind of things, and the government is providing more money for example, public transport and that kind of things.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm just seeing a question in from your friend Eric Dawson, Timo, so I have to ask you that next. What are the future scenarios and how are they developed and evaluated? So a nice easy one for you there. What are the future scenarios and how are they developed and evaluated?
Yes, that is a good question, but I think that we are developing, as I said, some kind of phenomenon-based anticipation, and so we have to recognize what are the most essential drivers in future, and we have to concentrate on these phenomena. There are, of course, this climate change is one of the most important. Then there is this urbanization and metropolitan, these kind of things, and the structure of population. It is aging all the time, and there are specific needs for them. Then we have this, how can I say it, international dimension, what is happening in our what is adjunct areas in Russia, in Sweden, in in Arctic area, and maybe it is Baltic Sea region. We have to. It is one of these phenomena, and of course, one of the most important is what is happening in business life. What kind of economic business we have in future, and then we have this digitalization is of course what is happening, how people are working in future, and how can they handle their all services and the net shops and that kind of things. But we have to recognize these most acute phenomena and concentrate on them.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us a bit more about taxation incentives?
Taxation.
Whether they promote a reduction in emissions. For example, many local businesses are deterred from operating within their communities due to punitive business rates, and this reduces services and facilities available locally. So that's from a lady called Caroline McParlin wanting to know how we can resolve this, learning from Finland. So just again, how can you talk to us more about taxation incentives that promote a reduction in emissions?
I'm not expert in taxation, but I know one example is when you are buying, when you are using car and you need what is that, benzene or diesel or something like that, or we have had just this kind of change in taxation, so we have to pay a little bit more. It is after 1 month, it is on, but it is only 5-10 cents per liter. It is not so much, but I think that it has its own influences on this carbon neutral target, and then this what is that, energy taxation. I know that it is changing, or there is a lot of speak about this, I know, but there is also, it is a little bit controversial issue because Finland lives from forest, and for example, was it yesterday, one of the biggest forest company are stopping one of the factories, and there are 1,000, 2,000 employees, and they don't like that this energy taxation is changing, and this was one of the reasons. So this carbon neutral target, it is not really easy to achieve, but we are on this path anyway.
Yeah, interesting. A question coming there from Ross Nemo from Glasgow Airport. So he's saying, can you talk about the approach to developing Helsinki airport city, maintaining international connectivity and climate change?
I think that Helsinki Airport is one of the biggest international hub in Europe. For example, these passengers traffic from and to Asia, to China, and that kind of things. But of course, we are now living quite quiet times, but this airport area, it is developing all the time, and there are many kind of activities. Number of activities is increasing all the time, and I know that I talked about these high-speed rail connections, and there is now we are developing, we have planning this are planning this high-speed rail connection between biggest city regions, and there is a link to the Helsinki airport. So if you are coming from northern or eastern or western part of Finland, you can come by train to very vastly to Helsinki airport, and I think that when we are thinking all this spatial structure of how Finland, this is one of the most important priorities, developing this Helsinki airport.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Let's just have a look, see how we're doing for time. Yep, so we've still got time for a couple more. Let me see if I can find the one that we've not looked at. Yeah, the one from Ian Munt. How do Nordic states cooperate and share in creating the networking and experimental culture that you refer to?
You said Nordic countries.
Yeah, how do you cooperate together?
We have quite close cooperation between Nordic countries. I mean, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland, and there is a what is that, Minister Council, and we have many kind of subcommittees. One is for environment, one is for land use planning, and for example, this committee or network for planning, we have meeting annually, and we are sharing our experiments and what we are developing right now, and it is quite long history, and I think that the need for this kind of cooperation between Nordic countries, it is increasing all the time. And for example, I know that you are very good at, for example, this digitalization and that kind of things, and it is also one of the main priorities in Nordic countries, and it is very good to share our our best practices and that kind of things. But I think that this planning system, it is many similarities but also differences, but I know that in Nordic countries this planning system have changed during last 10 years quite a lot, but Sweden is the one which have no that kind of national planning level at the moment, and I know that they are developing that part of planning system right now.
Thank you. And what will you do to reduce construction pollution and pollution from vehicles in Finland?
Pollution from?
Pollution. What will you do to reduce construction pollution and pollution from vehicles?
Construction building, yeah. I have to say that I'm not expert in construction building, but I know that I know that in Finland there are many projects. One is this, what is that? Using tree as a building material. For example, block of flats, it is made. We are using these trees, and it is coming more and more usual all the time, and then I know that we have this, what is this, zero carbon buildings and that kind of things, and then these energy systems are changing all the time, and many activities, but I have to say, as I said, that I'm not expert in this field.
No. Thank you. I mean, I know that Zero Waste Scotland are being very proactive. I know that they commented on the MPF4 to try and do something about construction pollution, because I think the onus is always on the individual and businesses and so on, whereas actually construction pollution is a big problem. So yeah, interesting question. I think we have time just for one quick question, and then we'll probably conclude. Okay, just one here about landscape character assessments. Are landscape character assessments done nationally or regionally? So that's a quick question there.
Landscape character.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what you mean, but landscape character, we have I think that we have classified these landscape areas and what are valuable. There are both nationally important landscape areas and both regional important landscape areas, and we are mapping these areas. It is constant work.
Okay, thanks very much. I think we'll probably leave it there in terms of the questions. Thank you so much for all the questions that have been coming. We've had so many questions. I know there's been a lot of people on the call today, and I'm sure you've had some of your friends from the Scottish Government when you spent some time there last year. Just to say thank you so much, Timo. Nice to see you again. For the audience, Timo and I met last year. He came to Ely to take part in a community engagement process. So it's great to see you again, and interesting as well to see your national situation room on your slides, Timo. So that chimes very much with, I know, what the Scottish Government's trying to do in terms of trying to get everyone in the room and trying to debate and discuss issues to try and come up with solutions. Very interesting to hear that citizens value planning and they see the importance of trying to do something about climate change, and obviously having some kind of national framework to put that local context into being is very important. Great as well to hear that your politicians are so aware of both the importance of planning and climate change. Interesting as well to hear that actually there are very many similarities between Scotland and Finland, and of course worldwide, in terms of aging population, the move towards digitization and so on. And of course we're all grappling with the issues around COVID and what that might mean. An interesting time to be predicting the future. The question from Eric there about how do you deal with the future when you're not quite sure what the future is going to be. So and I guess that's what makes our job as planners so interesting, that we're part of that conversation. So once again, thank you so much, Timo. We wish you well, and thank you also to RTPI behind the scenes. We've had Lisa, Jenny and Craig working behind the scenes there, helping field all the questions. So once again, thanks for your time, and I'm sure you'll be able to tune in to some of the other international discussions later in the week and in the following weeks. So bye for now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye bye.